what do detectives usually discover when someone is born into a property empire? Inherited wealth, you might be thinking, and you would indeed be correct. But what do politicians call it? Entrepreneurship. Once again, you would be correct in your deduction. Unlike many politicians who begin life claiming they understand ordinary working families, because they once waited 4 minutes for a latte, Dubai Dickie has never really pretended not to come from privilege. How could he with that haircut and posh accent? He attended the independent Uppingham School before studying construction economics and quantity surveying at the University of Salford. Now that is actually rather sensible. Unlike many MPs who possess degrees in subjects that sound like rejected Harry Potter spells, construction economics has an obvious connection to, constructing things. Remarkable. Enter the property world. Upon graduating in 1987, did little Dick decide to become a school teacher? No. A nurse? No. A struggling actor living above a kebab shop? Also no. Instead, he entered property development. A sentence that almost always ends with somebody driving a German saloon car. His first role was with London and Metropolitan, including time working in Paris, where he learned French, before joining the Sunley Group, the family property business founded by his grandfather. He later served as joint CEO for around 14 years, but of course he did. Now you might be wondering, if someone spends 14 years running a property company, what skills do they acquire? Leadership? Perhaps. Negotiation? Possibly. The supernatural ability to look at an abandoned warehouse and say, luxury apartments? Almost certainly. As property developers possess a remarkable gift. Where ordinary people see an empty field, they see Phase 2, the property baron. Leaving the Sunley Group in 2006, Tice moved into consultancy before becoming CEO of CLS Holdings, a commercial property investment company, in 2010. He later became CEO of Quidnet Capital, another property investment business, after leaving CLS. Now, this is important, because whenever someone in English politics says I'm from business, they usually mean one of three things. Number 1, they owned a corner shop. Number 2, they invented an app that lets people photograph sandwiches. Or number 3, property. Lots and lots of property. Richard Tice belongs firmly in category 3. You are asking whether property development is really that influential in England. Property isn't merely an investment. It's practically a national religion. People check house prices more often than their blood pressure. The businessman turned commentator. During these years, Tice became a regular commentator on the property market, writing columns for Property Week and appearing in the media to discuss housing and development. And here we observe our first clue. Many politicians begin by chasing publicity. Richard Tice already knew how publicity worked. He understood interviews, sound bites, television, the art of speaking confidently about complicated subjects while standing in front of expensive buildings. An underrated political skill. A long-standing EU skeptic. Now then, when did little Dick Lice suddenly become interested in politics? If you answered Brexit, you'd only receive half the marks, because his Euroscepticism goes back much further. Long before the referendum, Tice supported campaigns opposing UK membership of the euro currency. He was involved with Business for Sterling in the late 1990s, and even donated to David Diddy Davis's Conservative leadership campaign in 2001. You see, some people discover political causes. Others collect them like vintage wine. Dubai Dickie appears to have regarded European integration the way Sherlock Holmes regarded Professor Moriarty, as a recurring adversary. Brexit arrives. Then, 2015 Brexit approaches, and suddenly Dubai Dickie steps from businessman into a campaign organizer. He co-founded Leave.eu, alongside businessman Aaron, Russian money, banks, helping build one of the best-known campaigns, advocating the UK's departure from the European Union.
The Great Repeal Act, the Great Repeal Bill, that actually we will bring over all EU laws and then we will strip away those that we find uncompetitive and unnecessary for our economy. So the great thing is, it's at our gift, it's at our choice.
What EU laws would you like to scrap?
Sorry?
What EU laws would you like to scrap?
The ones that are unnecessary burdens on business.
But which one? Which one?
There are lots. In the property industry, there are lots of laws.
Can you name one of the laws?
Yes, I can name lots. We're not going to go into detail on here. This is a macro debate about the right level of access in the future.
After the referendum, he also co-founded Leave Means Leave, another pressure group pushing for a full Brexit. Have you noticed something? Everything seems to involve the word leave. English politics has always loved direct branding. Imagine if that other, nearly as well known as Detective, Sherlock Holmes investigations were titled similarly. Leave the murderer, catch means catch. Probably the butler. A Brexit transformed Little Dick from successful businessman into a recognizable political figure. Because Brexit did something extraordinary. It convinced thousands of business people, journalists, campaigners, and retired colonels that they should all immediately become politicians. Some succeeded. Others became podcast hosts. Little Dicky Lice enters the world of politics. Dubai Dicky Member of Parliament for Boston and Skegness. He has served as Deputy Leader of Deformed UK since 2024 and as the Deformed UK Business, Trade and Energy spokesperson since February 2026. The very large donations from energy and oil companies never once affected our Little Dick's opinion or politics. Previously, he served as the party chairman from 2019 to 2021 and again briefly in 2024. Well, his very nice boffant coiffed hair and little Lord Fauntleroy accent were well suited to a chairman position, which in Fragage's Deformed UK plc was a very ceremonial role, but it did come with free tea and biscuits. Since 2023, he has also been Reform UK's energy and foreign policy spokesman. What Dubai Dicky knows about climate change you could fit on a postage stamp and still have room to spare.
Hi, I'm Akshat Rati, the host of Bloomberg Zero podcast. This week on the show, I had Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK and the spokesperson for energy and net zero, to understand how he thinks about climate and energy issues and, crucially, what evidence shapes his views.
Look, the climate's always changed for millions of years, and it goes through cycles, long, medium and short. So these things move in cycles. And always has done, always will do.
When I presented him with evidence from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that the warming we are seeing today is not because of natural causes, but because humans are burning fossil fuels, well, things got heated.
What is the point on carrying on a podcast where we fundamentally disagree on everything?
Right. Well, we can fundamentally try to have a policy discussion because neither of us are scientists. I'm presenting you what the scientist said. You can take this home, you can read it later.
I don't
we
need
don't
to
need
read
to
it.
talk about
don't
science.
Give me any of it.
Yeah.
It's a waste of, it's literally, you're wasting my time.
And when shown more evidence...
You can't present me with a whole load of graphs that I can't read, that may well be bullshit.
Okay.
Okay. And put this out there. So this terminates now. It's end of podcast.
Fortunately for us, that was not the end of podcast. You can hear the full episode on bloomberg.com/0-podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. You won't want to miss it.
You can have this debate all you want. We're winning it, okay? We're winning elections. The voters are backing us.
I'm just asking for evidence is all.
He is a big advocate for drilling for more oil from the North Sea, claiming it will bring energy costs down, even though that oil would be sold on the world market at market rates. I guess Little Dick never got the memo.
As the Reform spokesman for business, trade and energy, that we need to approve all of the existing drilling consents for Rosebank, for Jackdaw. Oh, as if by magic, there we have Here we have our consent application. Hopefully on the live stream you can see it as well. Approved by Reform UK. Drilling consent for Rosebank and Jackdaw. I think that's absolutely vital. And that will gives a sign of confidence to people. And I know the Tories, let's just remember who actually caused the problem in the first place. It was the Tories. Who introduced net zero? It was the Tories. Who introduced the energy profits levy, the windfall tax? Oh, it was the Tories. Who actually didn't give the drilling consents for Rosebank and for Jackdaw? It was the Tories. And now they come Johnny-come-lately saying, oh, we quite like it after all. Unbelievable. Never forgive and never forget. We have to give a clear message to the oil and gas industry that we are deadly serious. We want those companies, be they domestic or international, to get ready to invest back here in the UK. And that's why we need to rename the NSTA, the North Sea Transition Authority. We need to take it back to being the Oil and Gas Authority. And, critically, we need to change its statutory mandate. That should be maximum economic recovery. As far as I'm concerned, frankly, every last barrel, every last drop.
He became the leader of Reform UK in March 2021, but was only ever keeping the toilet seat warm because he stood down in June 2024 and was succeeded by Smeagol, ut was for Security Honest Gov, Fragage, a multi-millionaire, but of course he is being a true man of the people like Smeagol, 5 houses, Fragage. Barrett's first theory. Now then, what have we established so far? Richard Tice was not a career politician. He didn't spend 20 years climbing Westminster's greasy pole and licking Smeagol Frogages. He arrived from business, from property, from campaigning. His central belief: that Britain's problems stemmed from poor management, too much bureaucracy, and not enough business thinking. Whether one agrees with that diagnosis is another matter entirely. Our task is not to decide, but to observe, because every detective knows facts first, opinions later, preferably after tea. So, the investigation has barely begun. We've met the businessman, the property developer, the Brexit campaigner, the man who helped organise movements long before he ever became an MP. But next time, the real mystery begins. How does a businessman become the leader of Reform UK? How does Smeagol Frogage leave, only to return? And how does Little Dick end up simultaneously being leader, chairman, deputy leader, and occasionally looking like the man left holding the keys, while everyone else went to the pub? Well, dear viewer, this is a good time to grab yourselves another beverage or top up your existing one. The curious case of the party that kept changing its name. This is watching The Defectives, the program where Westminster is treated like an Agatha Christie novel, except everyone survives, and nobody agrees whose fault anything is. This continuing mystery concerns a political organisation that appears to have spent almost as much time changing its name as Westminster spends changing prime ministers. Every detective begins with names, aliases, false identities, nicknames. In this case, there are rather a lot. Our trail begins with the Brexit Party, established in 2019 with the primary aim of campaigning for the UK's withdrawal from the European Union, which, from a branding perspective, possessed one considerable advantage. Nobody needed to ask, so, what exactly do they stand for? A rare luxury in politics. Brexit became the defining issue of English politics. Some loved it, some hated it. Most simply wanted everybody to stop talking about it. A Spafford Johnson slogan was born, "Get Brexit Done." Eventually, after the UK formally left the EU, the party faced an obvious detective question. If your entire identity is built around Brexit, What happens after Brexit? You might say. You need another identity. Exactly. Like a superhero after retirement, or a television chef after opening their 5th restaurant. In 2021, the Brexit Party was renamed Reform UK. Not because Brexit disappeared from political discussion, but because the party broadened its focus to include a wider range of domestic policy areas. Mystery number 1 solved. Enter Little Dick Lice now. Every organization eventually acquires a principal suspect. In this case, Rich Turd Tice. Before politics, Tice built a career in property and business. This immediately prepared him for Westminster. Both involve negotiations, planning disputes, and occasionally discovering that nobody has read the paperwork. He later became active in politics surrounding Brexit and eventually succeeded Smeagol Frogage, which is a wonderfully polite British phrase meaning, "We'd rather you forget the previous leaflet." So when Reform UK plc emerged from the Brexit Party, it joined a long Westminster tradition. If politics were a detective novel, half the suspects would be wearing fake mustaches. Climate. Now we arrive at climate policy. This is where every detective must separate opinion from evidence. Deformed UK has argued against several current UK net zero policies. The party says existing approaches are too costly, questions aspects of current climate policy, and has proposed expanding domestic oil and gas production while changing how environmental policy is pursued. Those are its stated political positions.
Do you believe in man-made climate change?
Look, climate change is real, has gone on for millions of years, always will. The arrogant naivety of people who think that you can stop the power of the sun, stop the power of volcanoes.
But about man-made climate
hear me
change.
out. Yeah. But there's no evidence that man-made CO2 is going to change climate change. Given that it's gone on for millions of years, it will go on for millions of years.
Hold on, so
hang
you're
on, hear me out.
You're saying there's no evidence that man-made climate change is changing CO2? Is that what you're saying?
So how did climate change happen before man-made CO2?
What is it that the vast majority of experts who believe that human activity has impacted climate change since the Industrial Revolution, what is it that you know that they don't?
I've read the International Governmental Panel on Climate Change's report, AR6 I think it's called, their 6th report, and it says if you get to net zero tomorrow, it'll make no difference to sea level rise for between 200 years and 1,000 years. In other words, they've not got a clue and it won't make any difference. We're being lied to, we're being misinformed, and we've got the courage to say to people, we've got to stop this nonsense. We all care about the environment, we all care about the countryside, that's why I don't want pylons blighting our countryside, that's why I don't want solar panels on it. But to suggest that a bit less CO2 is going to stop the power of the sun, stop the power of volcanoes, is arrant nonsense.
But that same panel, that you were talking about, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, said human activities are the main cause of climate change. Do you agree with that? That's a yes or no question.
No, that's absolute garbage, and I've just proven it because the climate change for millions of years before man-made CO2, they are lying to people, and the Norwegian government's own equivalent of our ONS has recently produced a report along the lines of what I'm saying there's no evidence based on the real data that proves that suggestion. But funny how that doesn't appear on the mainstream media. We've got the courage to tell it as it is to the British people.
It is true, though, that
people are being ripped off by the renewable sector, by the vested interests, and we're going to stop it. We're on the side of the British people, not the vested interest, nor the mainstream politicians.
The overwhelming scientific community, there's no debate on that.
There's masses of debate on that.
Say that the rate of
I can give you a list of 1,000
climate change since the Industrial Revolution has been vastly exacerbated by human activity. Do you not agree with that?
No, I don't. I can give you a list of 1,000 experts and scientists and professors, including...
That is a real minority.
No.
Why are they right and not the majority?
It's not a minority. There are loads and loads of scientists. There are loads of scientists who are terrified to speak because they won't get any research funding if they tell it as it is. There's so much money in the vested interests who are trying to push this agenda on us. It's got to stop. Only Reform UK is going to stop it. And do you know what? We're leading in the polls. Maybe the British people are starting to realise we're talking the truth. They know they're being lied to.
So NASA, when they say human activities are the primary cause of global warming and climate change, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, human activities are the main cause of climate change. They've got it wrong.
So President Trump has just been elected with a massive majority to lead the US, and he adopts our position. Maybe actually the American people, when they've been given a vote, they've realised that people like NASA, part of the establishment, they're wrong, and actually President Trump and we are correct.
Meanwhile, the overwhelming scientific consensus, reflected in assessments by bodies such as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is that Earth's climate is warming primarily because of human activities, particularly greenhouse gas emissions. The scientific consensus also concludes that reducing emissions substantially is important for limiting future warming and associated risks. Politics, however, is about deciding how governments should respond. Scientists examine evidence. Politicians debate policy. Television panels interrupt both. You might be asking, so science and politics aren't quite the same thing? Indeed, one asks, what is happening? The other asks, who can we blame before question time? Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and share widely. Stay observant. Stay skeptical. Question everything. I remain Barrett Holmes. And these are the files from the Defective Defectors.